Hey friends, it's RSKT. And in today's video, we're going to be messing around with a few AI tools. But before we get into any of that, new studio, new room to do stuff in. Whoops. Yeah, I'm not really in the garage anymore. I'm actually in a room, which is really, really cool. And it has a fan and windows, which is really nice. So yeah, bit of a filler video today. I have got stuff ready to go for this channel, client work and projects that I'm really keen to sort of dive into, but I just can't upload that stuff yet. And I really just want to throw something out there just to sort of wet your whistle a little bit, because today we're going to be taking a look at Stable Diffusion. I've been messing around with Stable Diffusion since last year, having a ball of fun with it. It's kind of been like a weird learning curve, and I know that there are other AI tools out there, but I really like Stable Diffusion mainly because, like, you know, people can train their own models. It's a lot more open-ended. There's like a really big community sort of ongoing for it, and it's free, which is probably the best part. Like, I know that there's things like DALL-E and Midjourney, and they're really, really cool. I just don't want to be forking out money, and I don't really have the best computer rig either. I've got like 6 gigs of VRAM, but I get by. And although Stable Diffusion can be really, really messy because there's like so many plugins and weird janky models and stuff like that, you can still do a lot of really, really cool stuff. I've actually had like a few Stable Diffusion tutorials planned for a little while, and I kind of wrote them all out. And then 2 weeks later, everything in the Stable Diffusion world changed, completely changed the game, and I pretty much had to go back to rewriting it. So I thought today, I've always wanted to try something which is plugging in my own artwork to Stable Diffusion and just seeing if we can make it get like more of a realistic rendering kind of going on. I'd love to be able to train my own model on my own artwork, but I'm still looking into that, and I don't really have the processing power to do it on my own. So I might have to like use Google Colab or something. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I thought today I'd just bring up some images, maybe open up Stable Diffusion a little bit, and talk a little bit about the workflow that I've been using in order to achieve certain results. And I'm really keen to get some feedback from any other AI users out there. Maybe I'm going about this the wrong way, and there would be a much faster and easier way to go about it. But yeah, anyways, let's jump in and have a look. So for those who watch my channel, I drew this illustration a little while ago, and I really wanted to see what it would look like with like more of a realistic sort of rendering. Obviously, if we zoom in here, this is kind of a low res quality version of it, but we can see that there's like, you know, very thick black outlines and some pretty basic coloring going on, nothing really too crazy. And I wanted to sort of take it to the next level, and I thought that Stable Diffusion could be a really fun way to experiment with that. However, the way that Stable Diffusion works, it's kind of making it very difficult. So let me just sort of show the general process here. So if we go to the image to image tab, we can drag this image in, and then we need to write a basic prompt of what we're looking at. The problem is, even though I drew this thing, I don't really know what I'm looking at. Like, I guess one way to go about it would be to write something like a blue goblin-like creature with red hair and maybe some Venus flytrap plants, wearing a backpack with buckles, mushrooms going out of his arm. Like, there's a lot, and it's not really going to work, but let's try it anyway. So yeah, something like this maybe. A blue goblin creature with wild red hair surrounded by flowers and leaves, mushrooms growing from his skin, holding a test tube full of green liquid, flytraps, fairies. Now obviously we could go ahead and write in like a bunch of negative prompts here and a lot more detail into the positive prompt side of things. Next up was picking a model to work with. Now, obviously, we could use the standard Stable Diffusion model, but I just don't think it was going to do a very good job on this. So what I went ahead and did was search up some sort of unique monster fantasy style models. I came across 2 by the same guy. So we got Jim Ido mode and Jim Teru mode. I went with Jim Teru mode. Like, Jim Ido mode is definitely really cool. It's super colorful and there's a lot of really neat stuff going on here. But I kind of just liked the more realistic version of these models. Like, these illustrations look absolutely awesome to me, even though, you know, they're generated by AI. I still find them super inspirational and really, really appealing. And, you know, looking at this sort of stuff really reminds me of a lot of my own artwork. So I went with this model. So we have that model loaded in now. And then I guess, you know, the general idea is that you want to mess around with like the CFG scale and the denoising strength. I liked to set it to DPM plus 2M for the sampling method. And we'll just drop this really, really low, maybe something like 3.5, and we'll just see what we get. Now, holy crap, I mean, that's not too bad. It looks pretty janky, but it also looks quite close to what we've got. And this isn't really something I did straight away when I messed around with this feature. I'll dive into the results that I got before, but, you know, honestly, doing this one now, I actually like this a whole lot better. So the next stage would be to upscale this. I've sent it back into itself. Obviously, it's at a super low resolution, like this is really blurry, so we want to upscale it. So we're going to keep the prompt the same, and we'll select the Ultimate SD Upscale script. Now, I might just bump this back down to 3. We'll select a upscaler. I usually just go with this one, and maybe we'll go 3 times the size. Fantastic. And now we've got a much high-res version of this thing. While this was rendering, I was trying to figure out what I did differently to the first time that I rendered this, and I think I figured out what it was. In the original model page, it gives you a hint where you can throw in this and creepy anatomy either side of your prompt, which is definitely something I did the first time. Now, I'm not fully happy with this, but I am a lot happier with the results from this single run than I got with a lot of the previous runs, which I'm about to show you now. So initially, I decided to just try in-painting certain parts of the image. I definitely included goggles in the prompt of this one, and these are some of the results that I got. So what I did as I went through these is picked out certain renders or certain passes that I liked, and then started to combine them. So here's a pretty rough one, and I've used ControlNet for a lot of these as well, but I'm still not really getting the most similar results that I'm really looking for. So, you know, I definitely liked a lot of the edging of this one, but I didn't really like the head. This thing looks completely different, but it was definitely one of my favorites, and I even upscaled it so that I could continue to use some of this awesome detail around the side. Like, look at this thing. This guy looks so crazy. I absolutely love the way some of this stuff looks. I mean, I'm finding this super inspirational for whatever I want to try and draw myself next, and incorporate it into my own style. This stuff's awesome. So yeah, I continued to do this, just getting more and more results as I went. And then I brought everything into Affinity Photo. So what I've done here is brought in my favorite parts and then just masked out the areas that I liked the most. So here's that awesome, crazy background. We've got this person as the base model now. We can keep bringing in more elements. So we're changing the helmet and the hair, changing the body here. I don't think I really used that one at all. Great, now we've got a new face in there, and then just did a tiny bit of color correction. So I shot this image back into Stable Diffusion and continued to sort of work on little parts using in-painting. So after throwing it through the same upscaler, we wound up with this, which, you know, isn't exactly like the original illustration, but I was really, really digging all of the monstrous creatures and stuff, even rolled into his hair up there. I mean, look at that. It's bloody awesome. So once I was happy with that, I brought that upscaled image into Affinity Photo. And I'll just zoom in here a little bit, just so that we can get a bit of a clearer view of everything. So what I went ahead and did is, if I just turn on this back to normal mode, you can see that I've just very loosely painted some colors, like doing basic color correction over the top, and then I set the whole thing to soft light. And then I've used the blend option just to sort of knock it back from the shadows a little bit and drop the opacity. So straight away, we're already getting like a little bit of color correction to make it look a bit more like the original image. And so, yeah, the rest of this is pretty much just color correction. We're just sort of lightening and darkening certain areas. We're adding on a little bit more color control, and then adding in like a lot of high pass detail sort of stuff. There was a lot of black areas at the bottom here I didn't like, so we just painted them out. These high pass detail sections are pretty hard to spot, but if we toggle them on and off, we can see that we're just getting a little bit more detail. Great, so all the blacks were looking a bit much there, so I just did a little bit of soft proofing, just sort of knock it back a little bit, and then some final color balance just to make the darks a little bit bluer. So yeah, I mean, I was really happy with the result of how this turned out up until this point. And then what I decided to do is start incorporating some of the original elements back in. So we can see here that I've got his mushroom growing arm from the original illustration down there, the crystals, and the hand holding the beaker. And from there, it was really a lot of trial and error. I'm messing around with a lot of control net stuff to try and really get it to match the image, but it wasn't really turning out the best. Some of the results were definitely really cool, like this one, but you know, it's just like a tangled mess of bones and organs. And then eventually we wound up getting something that looked a little bit better. Which is this one. I was really happy with that. That definitely looks like some sort of fungus growing out of his skin. Next up was the crystals, and I started to really give up at this point because I just found that the original model, it didn't really know what crystals were. It was really just throwing in like a lot of monstrous, hideous stuff. And I'm really struggling, and this is kind of the problem that I'm facing at the moment. I'm struggling to match the hand holding the beaker. Now, like Stable Diffusion is notoriously bad at doing hands, but I'm using Control Net for a lot of this stuff, and I'm still not really getting the effect that I'm after. Definitely something similar going on here and here, but it's still not quite right. I think the closest to the hand that I've managed to get so far is this lump, which I could probably bring back into Affinity Photo, color correct to match the rest of his skin, and then move on to trying to do the beaker. But yeah, I mean, I would probably call this a work in progress at the moment. I'm not even sure if I'm going to finish it, but I'm still absolutely loving how this is turning out so far. I am half tempted to just mash together a bunch of different photos and run it through this same sort of emulation to come up with inspiration for my own art and what I can draw. Are there people reflected in his goggles? Like a room full of people? Looks like it. Yeah, anyways. But definitely after throwing this into Stable Diffusion, I'm really liking this. This is, I mean, it's not as dark as the other one, but it's definitely matching my illustration a lot better. And I think following the same process of in-painting certain areas, bringing it into Affinity Photo, throwing in my original illustration and messing around with it some more, I could probably get relatively close. So yeah, if anybody has any tips or tricks on sort of how to help me better match this art style to my own illustrations, or at least get a little bit more control over like what I'm seeing. I'm assuming Control Net is the key, but I have tried out a bunch of different combinations and I'm not really getting it. I even tried turning this model into an in-painting model, but it's still not working so far. So any Stable Diffusion experts out there, please feel free to throw me a line in the comments. I'd greatly appreciate it. For everybody else who's watching and has no idea what Stable Diffusion is or how to use it, I do have a bunch of tutorials sort of lined up, ready to go on how to. I know it looks pretty bad that I don't know what I'm doing in this scenario, but the rest of it is relatively straightforward and easy to set up and use. So yeah. Anyways, that's it for me today, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit left field compared to a lot of my other content, but there is a lot coming, I promise. I know I keep saying that, but there really is. It's definitely been very challenging to manage an art channel and a music channel and a full-time job and doing all of my extra commission work and whatnot on top of it. While moving house, you know, it all takes time. but there is a lot of stuff in the works. So for now, hit the like if you like, and if you don't, tell me why. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.